Hey guys, welcome back to another vlog. This one, we're on the road. I'm at a youth camp here at Grand Lake in Oklahoma. It was an adventure getting here. We're on morning number 1, about to go get some breakfast with the guys, and who knows what will happen. It will be an adventure, I'm sure. So, let's go. Chavon Rogers, guitar virtuoso with the voice of an angel. Jansen Prater, he can slap at a bass, but he also has a strong hair game. And Donovan, I'm old enough to be his dad, but he can play the drums with the best of them. So here's the worship center stage. Well, let me show you the most important part, probably the coolest backstage experience. This is our green room, also known as a storage room, but we got the office. And I'm gonna break down all of our kind of gear that we're using for this camp this week. Some interesting tech stuff that we're using for Pro Presenter, so stick around for that. But I also want to talk to you guys just about some tips for leading youth in worship. And so if that's something you're interested in, just look at the timestamps below if you don't want to watch the full journey of the vlog. But I encourage you to stick around. It's gonna be fun.
You are no longer who you once were. Don't think about that, right? Look at how gracious this king is.
All right, first full day is wrapped up. Worship went great tonight. Kids are really starting to engage and stuff. And we'll see how tomorrow goes. So, it's time to go eat a Choco Taco, wash this sweat off, and we'll see you in the morning. Okay guys, let me give you just a quick tour of how we're doing all of our stuff on stage, the guitar rigs, how I'm running tracks, and just little stuff like that. So I decided to try this new setup where I'm using Pro Presenter 7 over here with a new little pedal called an air step. And I am firing all of our tracks and lyrics from this station. This is just a little confidence monitor, but then it's also sending signal to our screens here, and so it's all being controlled via this pedal right here. This air step pedal is pretty cool. It is sending MIDI notes that you can program to be the commands that Pro Presenter recognizes. So not sure if you'll be able to see this, but if I go up and down, it goes through my playlists, and then if we want to start a song, I can either go to the next slide right here, or I can start my timelines and then just a clear all. And it is a Bluetooth pedal. I've had some Bluetooth connection issues where it doesn't want to stay connected, but it's wireless up to 100 feet and it's working really well. So yeah, it's sending out of Pro Presenter just a stereo click left and tracks right, running some pads and stuff like that. If I start that track, you can see our confidence monitor here. And that's one of the reasons we did that, because there is no confidence monitor here. For Chavon over here, we're using the Pro Presenter stage display on this old iPad that is pulling lyrics from Pro 7 over there just via the Wi-Fi. We actually do have Wi-Fi in this building, so that's pretty handy. And then I've just got this really simple keys set up where I'm using this little Oxygen 25 for just some really simple piano stuff with Abel Mendoza's main stage session. And I can also fire some drone pads from here for like invitation songs and things like that, which is super handy. For my electric guitar rig, I'm still just using this Pod HD 500X with my trusty old Telly here. It's a Japanese-made Telly, which I kind of like because it's got the humbuckers as well as the single coil. Playing my Larrivee acoustic that I've had for, I don't know, 20 years. And that's running through a Line 6 wireless unit. For drums, Donovan is just using an old PDP set that he's got here. Sounds pretty good. But we're also using the Roland SPD SX sample pad for a few things, which is always fun. Adds a nice little flavor to the mix. Okay, Chavon, give us a little rundown of what you're using here for camp this week.
Alrighty, there's nothing too fancy. We're running a pretty dirty Podgo. Dirty because camp, am I right?
Seriously, it's so dusty.
So dusty from all this camp dust. Running some of the David Hislop patches. He's got his own custom IRs in there that sound real good. I think they're modeled after his AC30 Greenback speakers. I'm running into an RC booster as a preamp so that it makes it sound a little bit less stale and digital. Kind of makes it sound a little bit more lifelike. Add a little bit of gain from there because I like the gain sound from the RC booster. Just sounds more natural to me. Running that into the Podgo. Nothing fancy there. And then I have this Vumurum Janray running into the effects loop very sloppily with a bunch of nasty cables because I didn't wire it up for this camp. But I think this thing sounds eons better than a lot of the drives that are on there. But when I am using the drives on there, I use the Timmy modeled one, the Tima. It sounds pretty good. But I pretty much keep it consistently Kinky Comp into a Tima, the Timmy drive volume after that, because I've had issues with like the volume before that. It winds up not being as natural for like swells and stuff. So volume after all that into the amp. It's an AC30 with his custom IRs in there based on his greenbacks. Sounds real good. Send, return, which typically if I'm using the Janray would be back here. EQ, I used to take out some of the honky frequencies that the Podgo's team seems to amplify. Delay, I just use a transistor tape. Sounds a little bit more interesting to me than like a digital delay. And then the Glitz reverb, which is like the closest thing I can find to a cloud-ish reverb. Because I love the Strymon stuff, but I don't have any of my Strymon stuff. I think they have like a couple other patches in here that, they've got a few that are like kind of cloud-esque. So that's usually what I wind up running. So here's like pretty clean. That one doesn't have any delay on it. So then I bump it up, it's a little bit wetter. And then my swell patch. It's a little hot. There we go. That's kind of how that goes. So that's like my gain 1 setting, and then other patches I'll have like different levels of drive or different kinds of reverb that kind of escalate in that same way through the snapshots. So
Playing your Strat. Anything special about this guitar?
nothing special at all. This thing, I've had it for like 7 or 8 years and haven't done a thing to it other than setups, which it desperately needs a setup right now. But running into this wireless thing, which works real good, the X-Vive.
Let me see it.
It's like fairly affordable. I think it's like $125, but like I'll use this thing on like my bar gigs and casino gigs and it'll last the whole time. So like plenty of battery life, never have any problems with it. Dropped it in syrup one time. Dropped it in like a bowl of syrup and it kind of scared me because it started cutting in and out, but it's working again. So
it's a built-in battery that you recharge. It's not like AA's or anything.
You charge it through like a micro USB.
Yeah. Okay.
But works awesome, has great range, and super light and good for Strat pickups.
Okay, so whenever I get my Pod Go, I should buy a David Hislop patch?
Absolutely.
Okay,
That like changed it for me. Everything else, all the other patches that I was able to create without a custom IR sounded like really stale and lifeless. But then when you get those IRs in there, it makes it sound a lot more organic. But
Sweet. All right, thanks.
Yeah.
All right, we are headed over to do a little Q&A session about worship. And so we got a bunch of people coming in. Should be interesting. A little scared.
Do any of y'all have any like brothers or sisters?
You have 7?
I got 7.
I got 8.
Whoa.
Yo! You got 8?
Yeah. My dad got 8, yeah.
One of the perks of being the camp band is that you also get to be the baking show judges. So we're gonna see how this goes. We're gonna find out if these are salty chocolate balls.
And I haven't seen it for.
Okay guys, let's talk about how to lead youth in worship. What tips would I give you? Well, I've been doing it since I was about 16 years old as a youth, and I think I can give you 3 thoughts to keep in mind as you're preparing to lead youth in worship, whether at your church or at a church camp like this. Boils down to these 3 things. This is not all-inclusive, but 3 tips to think about. Number 1, be authentic. Number 2, be energetic. And number 3, be a teacher. So the first one, be authentic. Man, students can tell if we're just being a fake, if we're trying to be something we're not. You know, I'm 38 years old. I don't need to be leading the youth the same way that I was whenever I was a 17-year-old. Now, we're still going to be energetic and have fun, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. But, you know, even from the things that you wear on stage to the way that you communicate, trying to use language that's appropriate maybe for who you are, just be yourself, you know, like don't try to be something you're not, because they can tell if you're faking it. So that's what I would say, be authentic. And then also, I think it is important to actually bring some energy. So pick some high energy songs to get the kids engaged. It's a good kind of easy on-ramp for students who are unfamiliar with worship. I think it's a big ask to say, hey student who's never even been to church before, let's all sing Nothing Else by Cody Carnes for the first song tonight, and everybody get on your knees and worship. Like, it's just too much. And so kind of creating this on-ramp with these higher energy songs, I think is a good way to go about it, especially when you're leading for students. And then the third thing is just be a teacher. You know, so many of these kids nowadays, they have no exposure to the gospel and to the church. Just the other day, a kid was walking down the hall and we were talking about needing to get the baptistry out. And he's like, what's a baptistry? And because he had literally never been in our church before, it was his first week. And we have to think about that, especially when you come to like a youth camp. We're leading these students. They don't have the knowledge that maybe you grew up with going to RAs and GAs or going to church, and just the words that we sing sometimes can be a little confusing. And so being a teacher, I think, is important. Maybe you're singing about the glory of God. Well, that's just like this ambiguous, weird thing to someone who is not a believer. Now, obviously, believers in worship, those two have to go together. So a non-believer can be influenced by the songs that we sing. But I think being a teacher in these environments, and also stretching students, giving them these teachable moments to help them stretch their worship muscle. I remember I was a senior in high school. Charlie Hall was leading at Super Summer, and it was the first time that I ever lifted my hands in worship. And it was a coaching kind of moment for him, a teaching moment for him as we sang the song Sweep Me Away, if you remember that one. And it was just this freeing moment where I realized the outward expression of my body is tied to, my inward heart change. And so how important that is, and just explaining things through scripture and biblically teaching kids. And so one bonus tip that I would have is just, especially if you're leading a camp, don't do too many songs. These kids don't even know half the songs we're doing when we start. So we've kept it to about 10 song bank for this week. So hopefully those tips help you. If you've been leading worship for a long time and there's other thoughts you would add, post those in the comments below and let's just help each other out. Leading youth in worship is sometimes pretty tough to get them going and get them not to be self-conscious about what their peers would think around them. Depending on your environment, this is a very country church camp. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's our last full day, so we'll see how it goes. I've got the cross dangling in front of it.
That's next, man. You gotta hypnotize me.
Oh, yeah. Okay, boys, it was a good week, right?
It was a good week.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so we're about to go home. I want them to tell me their fondest, maybe not fondest, just what memory will you always remember of this camp? 'Cause there's always something.
Always something.
Jansen.
Two things. One thing was the goofy dance that all the kids do before big church.
Church clap.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Church clap.
Church clap.
Yeah, that's what it's called. And that was neat. It was really neat seeing everyone do that. And then it was also neat running into people that I haven't seen in 10, 15, 20 years. I don't know. It's been a really long time. That was neat running into them.
Cool. Donovan?
It's my first church camp. It was pretty fun. That and signing people's shoes, I guess. That was
They'll never
cool.
forget you.
Yeah.
Kevin?
There's this, after lunch every morning, when you exit, there's this really sweet smell from the dumpsters. It just hits you. And
You'll never forget it.
I'll never forget it, ever.
That's great.
And Ryland guessed the food correctly, basically.
I should have filmed it.
Every time.
It was
Yeah.
pretty crazy.
We're going to stop at the casino on the way home. All right, that's the end of the vlog. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Like and subscribe, right, guys?
Like and
and
Oh,
subscribe.
yeah. Like and subscribe.
And check out Cavin Rogers on Spotify.
Yeah, do it.
He's going to be huge.
Hey, you're gonna let him have it.
That's called living right.